Welcome back to Sledgehammer Horror, guys. I am Ken Sledge, and let's talk horror. Now, today I am joined by the amazing Jeff Kirkendall. Jeff, how you doing today, man?
Doing well. How are you?
I'm doing very well. Thank you for asking. A lot better now that we're hanging out. Now, for those of you that don't know Jeff, before we get started here, I would like for those of you that don't know him to get to know him a little bit. Jeff is an actor, producer, director with over 100 titles to his name, including Sharkula, The Amityville Exorcism, Amityville in Space, Cocaine Shark, Splatter Farm, so many more. So you've been a part of the indie horror scene for a very long time, and it's a scene that a lot of us are so enamored with and so grateful for because it helps to keep horror going when Hollywood decides horror's not cool enough there for a little while. So, what got you started in the indie horror genre?
Well, I got interested in acting and filmmaking back in the 1990s when I was in college. I was taking communications and I got to take some video production courses back in the VHS days, the good old days.
Yeah.
So I learned to shoot video, and I was always a big movie fan too. So after I learned to use video, I thought to myself, maybe I can make something of my own. I also got to know a lot of the other independent filmmakers in my area at the time too, and I learned editing, the old linear decks, and then when the computers came along, I taught myself nonlinear editing, and so I would edit movies for other filmmakers. And as I said, I was getting into theater and acting courses so I could perform, and all the things just kind of came together at that time. And I got involved in the independent film scene in my area, Albany, New York.
That's awesome, man. And like I said, you've been doing this, some of these films that like we grew up loving, like with like Splatter Farm and stuff like that. Is this something that you always knew that once you started to get, like you said, you've got those big camcorders, you're holding those, doing the VHS tape recordings. Is it always something, did you always know it was horror that you wanted to gravitate towards?
Well, I got interested in the horror genre back in the 1980s during the golden age of the slasher movies. I got interested in those movies. I have a fondness for those. Before that, I wasn't so much interested in that genre, but I got attracted to it. And when I set out to make my first movie, I knew I wanted it to be some kind of horror suspense picture. And I've worked in a lot of those with a lot of those type of movies, but I had done some other things outside of there as well. But it's one of my favorite genres. It's a lot of excitement, action with a supernatural element sometimes. A lot of fun.
Well, and we just did an interview with Mark Polonia about Cocaine Shark, which you are a part of. What was it like being on set and being a part of Cocaine Shark?
Actually, that was one of the films that I did. I filmed my own stuff remotely, and it was added to the movie. That was during the pandemic, and because of circumstances, that was one I did not travel to Pennsylvania for. So I filmed a couple of parts. I did a cameo on camera as a security guard, and then I did a voice role for the movie. So I was able to be a part of it that way because of circumstances.
Right. So what was it like for you? That's not something you're really used to when you've been acting for, a good chunk of your life. You're not used to doing it remotely. You're used to being on set around other people to, read body language and stuff like that. How was it for you doing it remotely?
It is a little bit different when I do those kind of things because you're by yourself and working with the equipment. And like you said, you're not playing off another person.
Mhm.
So you have to kind of be in the moment, use a little bit of imagination, sometimes use the camera as the other person, or if it's
Yeah.
going to be something on television, that's a little different too. But I do like being on set and working with other people better, but I do the remote things occasionally as well.
Sure. Well, and we talked about, Cocaine Shark and what other, I know NDAs exist, so it's not possible to talk about everything you have coming up, but do you have anything coming up down the pipeline that you can tell us about?
I've acted in a few movies for Mark that I can't say much about because our distributors don't want them to be talked
Right.
about until they come out. This past weekend, I worked with Mark on a joint co-production where something we're making together, co-directing. It's a script that I wrote called The Stalking.
Okay.
We are kind of keeping the plot under wraps, but what I've said before many times, it's a killer plant movie. That's all I'll say about it. It's our second collaboration after Return to Splatter Farm as co-directors. And I'm very excited about that. We had a lot of young actors on set, different people we hadn't worked with before, a really big cast. The first day on set, we had about 20 people, which is much more than we usually have. So that was
Yeah.
pretty exciting, chaotic, and a lot of fun. But I'm really looking forward to that one. Mark's working on the editing now, and I think it's going to be interesting. It's kind of a teen, in the teen horror genre, but with plants as well. So
That's amazing, man. And like he said, there's a lot of stuff that he does have coming up down the pipeline that we can't really talk about. So the best way to stay up to date on everything that he's doing is to follow him on social media. And you don't have to go far to do that because I have all the social media links down in the description below. So if you're not following him already, please make sure you're giving him a follow on social media. So like I said, you can stay up to date on all the amazing things that he has coming up for us here in the future. Now, we do know what you're doing in the future and what you're doing now, Jeff. But here for a second, I would like to go back to the past and talk about what got you started in the horror genre, your first horror movie. And the first horror movie that you watched, Jeff, was.
well, I always answer that question with the movie that drew me into the horror genre. I don't think it was the first one I ever watched, but it was a movie that captivated me and made me interested in the horror genre and made me become a horror fan. Was the original Nightmare on Elm Street, and I actually watched it a couple of years later, around 1986, when it was on video. But I was really captivated by that movie. I thought aside from the really interesting visual and horror effects, it had a really interesting drama storyline, and I was really captivated by the story. And after that, I started watching more movies in that genre, like some of the other series of that time, like the Friday the 13th movies and Halloween, and the ones everybody talks about, and some more odd ones too, but the more lesser known slasher films. But I really was captivated by that movie, and that's the one I credit with getting me really interested in the horror genre.
It's a fantastic film. To this day, I've said numerous times that it's one of the best written, directed horror movies of all time. You take out the last 5 minutes of that movie, it's close to a perfect movie. So you said around 86, which was a damn good year for those of you that are keeping track. But do you remember about how old you were the first time you had seen it?
Let's see, I was about let's see, about 18 or so.
Yeah. And it's one of those movies that really, really sticks with you because the imagery that comes along with A Nightmare on Elm Street is one of those ones that everything practical, but it all looks real. Even today, a lot of that film still really, really holds up today. And that's actually a great segue because it's a very effective movie, for a lot of people for a lot of different reasons. But which scene would you say it was, Jeff, that affected you the most?
I don't know if it was one scene in particular. Like I said, the thing about that movie, it was such a compelling story. The story of this teenage girl who was trying to unravel this mystery, this supernatural force that couldn't be explained that was killing her friends. And she had to unravel the mystery before quick enough in order to save herself. I think some of the scenes at the end where after a lot has gone on, she confronts Freddy. I think the scene where she turns her back on him is one of my favorite scenes. And he comes out of the bed and then he tries to kill her and he loses his energy. It's a lot of symbolism and it's just a really good scene. But there's a lot of good moments in that movie, and of course a lot of horrific moments too. So
Absolutely. And while we're talking about horrific, as horror fans, something that we love is the kills. We love to look at the kills, especially, a lot of people, it's the more graphic, the better. A lot of people, it's the, more practical, the better. And there are really three major kills in this film, and all of them are very practical and very, very memorable. But which kill would you say it was that stuck with you the most?
well, I think probably the death of her friend Tina in the bedroom is pretty memorable. The way it went down, where the invisible blades slice her, and then she goes up on the ceiling. I hadn't seen anything like that before, and I didn't learn until way after how that had been done. But it was nice not knowing how that had been done because it's yeah, it's really interesting. It's really incredible to watch on screen. So
Right. Very scary moment too, when you got Rod sitting there in the corner, Tina, he has no idea what's going on. He's half awake, half asleep, watching his girlfriend getting dragged up the wall. So, that's definitely one of those moments where you feel for this character as well.
oh, definitely, definitely. Yeah, like I said, the characters are all very sympathetic. I think the teenagers in that movie are almost kind of innocent in a way, compared to today's a lot of how it is today. Just the way it was shot and the way they act and so forth. But a really good drama. Yeah, really good drama overall. Yeah.
Definitely a lot of drama with family drama. There's a lot of alcoholism, a lot of, there's a lot of underlying issues that go along with this movie. But Nightmare on Elm Street is a bigger franchise now. I think they've got 10 films in that franchise now, if you count Freddy vs. Jason, somewhere right around there. Which film in the franchise would you say is your favorite of the bunch?
That would be a tie between the original and Wes Craven's New Nightmare. I think they're both spectacular movies. New Nightmare is a masterpiece in every aspect. It almost surpasses the original, but both those two movies. But I am one of those people who will defend all the sequels right down to the line, because I thought they were all really, even the weakest one had a lot of good moments in it. So I really enjoyed it.
Well, and Wes Craven's New Nightmare, a lot of people talk about how Scream rejuvenated the horror genre. We wouldn't have had Scream without Wes Craven's New Nightmare.
Right.
That was the perfect precursor into what Scream was.
Yeah, it set up things for Scream. New Nightmare kind of broke even financially, but it was a seminal movie that it set everything up for that other film. Definitely.
Right. Now, we talk about, Wes Craven's New Nightmare. We talk about the original and everything in the middle, but I've been asking people lately, would you like to see your first horror movie remade today? Well, that did happen about 13 years ago with Nightmare on Elm Street with Jackie Earle Haley playing the titular role of Freddy Krueger. Did you see the remake? And if so, were you a fan?
I did see the remake. I went to the theater out of curiosity to see it. I thought, I guess I was kind of in the middle on that one. I liked the scenes that were original. I didn't like the scenes that were redone. I thought the scenes that were redone really fell flat. But when they tried something original, like the scene in the grocery store, I thought that was really good. So I didn't hate it, but it was okay. That's all.
I agree with you. Because the scenes that they redid, they just took the original idea and made it CGI rather than, they took the practical effect and made it CGI. But you're right. The scene like in the grocery store where it's going back and forth between the boiler room and the store. Great scene. One of my favorite scenes in the whole movie. So I'm not a hater of that movie. I think it's just fine. If I had seen that before I had seen the original Nightmare, I might like it even more. It's one of those movies that the crutch to it is the fact that it uses so much of the original to hold on to. So we've talked about some of the things that you've worked on personally, Jeff, and how horror started for you, a lot of the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise. But here for a second, my little buddy Ghostface is here. We want to throw a curveball at you. He has a question for you. What's your favorite scary movie, Jeff? What is your favorite horror movie of all time?
That's a really hard question to answer. I've always had difficulty. There's so many good ones. I can't pinpoint one. I cited Nightmare on Elm Street because it was seminal in me becoming a fan of the horror genre. But it would be hard for me to pick one in particular that I would put right at the top. It's almost impossible to answer.
Right. And I know it's a very hard, especially because it's one of those things that can change on the day-to-day basis. You could wake up one day and be like, God, I really just want to watch this movie today. And it completely changes the way that you're thinking about things for that whole day. So man, I do again want to thank you for taking the time out to come out and hang out with me and talk about some of the things that you're working on, talking about your first horror movie. But before I let you go, we always have one last question that we ask. We're going to bounce back to the original Nightmare on Elm Street. And what we're going to do here is we are going to rank this movie on a skull count. Now, we're not ranking Nightmare on acting, production, score, direction, nothing like that. What we're doing here, Jeff, is strictly ranking Nightmare on Elm Street on how much it affected you on your first viewing. So 0 skulls being not effective, 5 being extremely effective. You can use half and quarter skulls anywhere in the middle. Jeff, what would your ranking of Nightmare on Elm Street be?
Oh, probably about 4.5 or so. Real high.
Yeah. It's just one of those movies that sticks with you, whether it's, you got, Tina going up the wall. You got Johnny Depp in the waterbed with the excruciating amount of blood coming out after he's been sucked into the waterbed. There's just so much about this movie that is so memorable and easy to love. And I know I said it at the beginning, guys, but we're at the end of the third act. The credits are about to roll and the curtain's about to drop. But before that happens, I want to remind you, I have all of Jeff's social media links down in the description. So make sure you're following him to stay up to date on all the amazing things that he's going to have cooking up for us here in the future. Jeff, please don't go anywhere. I got a couple more questions for you. Everybody else, if you haven't already, please like and subscribe. It really does help the channel more than you can know. And follow Sledgehammer Horror on social media. All our links are down in the description. But until next time, keep talking horror, stay what you are, and we'll see you guys soon.